Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special Siege and Sandfox training live stream. I'm your host, Chris Wilson. I'm the designer on the project. First of all, thank you very much to Epic for allowing us to be part of the stream. And secondly, the rest of the team is actually sitting in chat right now, so hopefully between myself, the design, and the art guys, we can answer all your questions. But let's move straight into it. Okay, let me just a few windows open this evening. Okay, so yes, the topic is getting started with Paper2D. I'd just like to stress that it really is an introduction. I'd love to move on to further things. And, oh, someone's saying volume, please, or could that be the thing before? We'll see how it goes. So yeah, it's an introduction, and if it seems nice, if you guys are into it, then we'll be happy to expand it. So here's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to open up a completely blank project. The one that ships with Unreal Engine, the default Paper2D one. So no cheating there. I'm going to take the existing material and I'm going to change it so it allows a lighting to be applied to it. And then I'll import a couple of sample assets. This is where, as a designer, I am cheating because I will be using lovely assets provided by our art team. Then I will create a tile set. And from that tile set, I will make a tile map. And finally, I'll just give you a quick demo of the lighting, just so you can see that, honestly, to get to this stage probably isn't as hard as you think. Okay, sorry, I just read in the chat. I'm not used to so many windows. Okay, then I'll move over to our projects, the Siege and the Sandfox. And again, I'll show you our tile set so you can see that it's similar, but there are differences that hopefully we can talk about. And I will show you the materials we use, and you'll see that they are largely similar to the ones that are in the example I'm going to make. And I'll show you the normal maps, which obviously is something different. Emphasis on show, not fully show the process of creating them. But I'll also show you some of the other sort of general tips and tricks we're using. Because I feel like each one individually probably, isn't too complicated. They're all approachable. But all of them together is probably what is making some people think, there's some real magic trick going on here. And of course, I've left plenty of time for questions, both as time goes on, and there should be hopefully time at the end to just chat through everything. But just to repeat again, at least I'm squinting at the chat, at least one of our artists is in the chat. So if I'm going along, if anything sort of specific art leaps out at you, hey, just go for it. Okay, now for the fun part, the part that I'm most worried about not working, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So got a little option here to zoom in on this a little bit so we can look more closely. So as I said, no cheating here. We're going to use the 2D side-scroller project with no starter content, and I'm going to leave it with the lovely original name of my project because I can't name your project. Yes, so let's click Create Project there, and let's move this back over to this one. Yes. Oh my god, spoilers. Let's get rid of that. Yes, let me just check over here. Yes, okay, so as this loads up, it won't take too long. The first thing we're going to do is just get rid of the default level because I want to show you that we're coming up from nothing, and also it's just not helpful. I'm sure many of you guys have seen this, and for a different style of 2D game, this is suitable, and this character has its uses, but we don't use any of this. So I'm going to go in straight away and go into the maps, and let me just check my thing over here. Yes, and right click and go to level, and I'm going to call it New World because I love that name. And then I can save that one, doesn't really matter. And then, as you see, nothing. That's what I want. We'll come back to that later. So the first thing we want to do is import one of our textures. So I'm going to be fairly lazy with the folder structure here because everyone has their own folder structure. In fact, I can show you the crazy complicated structure we have, but I'm just going to keep it simple. So I will just go here, make a new folder, and I will call this textures. Now, I've got two textures here, which I'm just going to pull in. There's nothing special about these textures. They are just, where's my little zoom? There it is. They're just normal TJs, nothing special about the textures. And the easiest way to import them in this instance is just literally, I will grab the tile set one first, and I will drag it in. That's all I need to do. And then get back to this. Here we go. So the first thing to note is if I have a look at this now, it doesn't look right. You can see that even over Twitch, I'm sure you can see that it's being filtered, so it's blurry, which obviously normally is the kind of thing you want, but as our game is a pixel art game, we want things to be pixelated. That's actually the correct look. You'll also see over here, I think I can, again, guess I'm aware that on stream it's not always super clear if I don't do this. You can also see you've got some compression settings here, which we don't want. Again, artists can fill in the specific details. I don't want to get that wrong. I just know that as we've created it, we do not want the palette we're using to be messed with, and the compression settings can do that. Likewise as well, it seems actually by default this doesn't happen anymore, but we certainly don't want to generate any bitmaps because as we'll be using the orthographic camera, the distance never changes, so we don't need that. Now I could go through individually and change all these options, but actually a nice little Paper2D feature is I can just go here and I can right click on it and I can go sprite actions and then apply Paper2D texture settings. And if I click that and we reopen it, we can see that now it's there and it's pixelated in a good way. There's a different compression setting used here. Again, I defer to artists on the absolute specifics, but I know that's the one we want. And we continue not to have any bitmaps because we don't need those. So that's good. Let me just check that I have everything. Okay, yes. So the first part now is the sort of one of the first parts of debatably the sort of secret sauce of when people ask us how we're getting the lighting going, because there are some tricks to this, and I just need to make sure I do this properly because it's a little tricky. So the first thing we want to do is we need to be accessing some of the sort of core plugin functionality here. Normally you can't see this stuff. Now way down here on the bottom right, and don't worry, I know this is obscure, there's a view options thing. So I click on this, you want view options, and then you want show engine content and show plugin content. If I go back here, what this does is now when I open my sources panel, if we scroll down, there's Paper2D content. And the one we're interested in modifying is this default sprite material. Now I will just, again, got my little thing. So let's get that. This is basically as simple as it gets. I mean, it's too complicated for me as a designer, but there's not a great deal going on here. The important thing is though, we're not making drastic changes to this. So if I set this back, all we're really doing here, I might have, do I have a thing? Yes, there we go. I don't need to change a great deal here. Really, I just need to go to the shading model and change this to default lit, which will change a few things on the other side. And let me just consult my notes to make sure that's all correct. Yes, that's fine. So the main thing we need to do here is, and again, this is the time for the artist to step in and tell them exactly why, but if we hold down Control, so we can grab this node, we can just drag it from there up to here. And once that's done, there's only one other thing we need to do here. Well, two other things, but to achieve the same thing. Because obviously, you know, Unreal Engine is this hugely powerful thing, and it's got lovely lighting and PBR, etc., etc. A lot of those things that we're actually not going to use in that sense, and a lot of that comes down to just how shiny our objects would look. They would look strange. So what we want to do is we don't want any specular, and I'm aware that you are normally told not to mess with this. In fact, I remember Jess Hyder of Epic herself saying, you never need to mess with this. And I'm like, yes, but sometimes you do. So we have the specular like that. And also we want the roughness. And I always get this the wrong way around. I think you want it to be 1. You want it to be the most rough. So it is matte. We'll find out the fun way. But that is basically all you need to change there. Now, normally what you would probably want to do is actually copy this and you know, keep this existing one around, the default sprite material. But for this example, I'm just going to leave this one because it should be fine for demo purposes. So I've hit apply there, and that should be fine. So that's one part of what we need to do. Now here are the other middle sort of secret sauce things that you need to do. I'm just checking get this in the right order. Yes. So the other problems exist around with the orthographic camera. There are some lighting issues and things don't work. Now obviously the default renderer now is the deferred renderer, which for most stuff is great, and to be honest we'd like to move back to it one day, but currently we can't use that. So what we need to do is, if we go to project settings, and then we want to find forward shading, and we want to enable forward shading. So that's enabling the forward renderer. And then Unreal Engine helpfully says, hey, by the way, you need to restart to do this. So there's no reason not to do that now. So we'll save that texture that we're working on, and we will reload it. So while that's loading, that takes care of one problem. There's still another problem that when you have light sources in the game, because the orthographic camera in many ways isn't sort of actually moving around, you'll find that your light sources will just fade off when they get further away. They're basically being culled. And that is something we also need to fix. And thankfully, there is a workaround, and it is definitely a workaround, but it functions for us. So let me just check the right term. It is min screen, there we go. So minimum screen radius for lights. Again, artists can probably give more detail, but the general gist is hopefully what I said, that because it's meant to cull lights that you can't see anymore that wouldn't actually be involved in the scene, but because the orthographic camera doesn't necessarily give this information, we ended up in situations where even in our quite small levels, the lights were just very weak. So what we do basically is we set this to 0, which basically means, hey, don't ever cull my lights. Trust me not to get this wrong, which, is a big ask, but that's what we do. Okay, so that should be that. So we have our material, we change our engine settings. Now we actually need to make a tile set from this texture. So let's go back to our content and let's go here and just check that's there and check it still looks okay. Yep. So we will make a new folder and we will call this one tile set, and we'll open that and we will right click and we will then go to Paper2D and tile set. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, I'm going to imaginatively call this new paper tile set because I am. Okay, so when we open this, we don't actually need to change a huge amount for reasons I will explain. Now, what did we call this? I think we called it P2D. There we go. So we'll just import that. There it is. That looks fine. Now, the thing to mention here is that there are options here for changing the tile size and margins and things like that. They're fairly self-explanatory. I'll show you in more detail kind of how this works out for our project, but the important thing to note here is that the artists have very kindly provided me something that matches the defaults. So in this instance, I don't have to change those settings, but you may do depending on your tiles. But other than that, we don't have to do much else here, except I will, even though we're not going to have a character running around, so we don't need it, I feel like it's open anyway, so that we should take a look at the collision. It's pretty simple. So if you've got a tile like this, where obviously, we expect the collision to just be the whole tile, then we can just hit this box button and we're done. Some of the other tiles, things are slightly more complicated, and there's a polygon button. And as we'd expect the player to walk up these stairs here, then basically we only need the bottom surface to collide like this. Again, I'm doing this roughly, so spend as long, as you would need to do that. And I think I always forget with this editor. Can you just double click to end them? Let's find out. Yes, you can double click to end them. It probably even says that. See, I don't even read. But okay, so I believe you can only do these one by one. I'm happy to be corrected. So I just, do a few. You get the idea. You can make slightly more complicated shapes, but to be honest, it's probably a bad idea to make shapes that are too complicated and make a mess like this, like an idiot like I just did there. So I would stick to simple shapes. But anyway, there's a nice editor for that here. Oops, I broke that one. No one saw that. Nothing happened. It's totally fine. Anyway, so you would go through and do those while you're there. But there's not too much more to mention there. It just kind of works. So we've got our tile set. And now let's make an actual map of it, which uses those tiles. So if we go back up here, a little bit of organization, add a new folder, call it tile map. And we'll open that folder. And then we will right click and go Paper2D tile map. And imaginatively, I will call this new paper tile map. Oh, yes. I have those in the chat because this is the common thing. Keith, one of our artists, insists that everything is power of 2 on the grid. And I will... You know what? No, it's not... I might have a little bit of time to pick up on that, but it kind of, derails me like it just did. Anyway, generally you should use a power of 2 grid. It makes sense, but just let me do this. Okay, yes. So now we're actually going to use a map where we're going to actually paint those tiles that we've set up. So on the left-hand side here, we can click this to pick an asset, and we only have one, so that's easy. And then you can move around this thing with the right mouse, just scroll through it, and you can zoom in with the mouse wheel. Now the other thing to notice obviously is this is pretty small. Like, so we've got the map width and map height over here. So let's just make it a bit bigger. Obviously this is, you know, completely down to your project, but the point is it's pretty flexible to do that. And then all you need to do, you're about to find out why I'm a designer, not an artist, is just drag the tiles that you want. So I'm just left clicking and dragging, and you can just put down some tiles. Now, as I said, this is not an art stream, so I'm just gonna just slam them down anyway. Let's put a lovely wall here. God, this is amazing. I mean, why do we even need those guys? I'll put those in, and I know, why not some stairs? Some super steep stairs that go nowhere. This is also a situation where you can shift drag in here. So say, for example, these stairs, I can shift drag around those and get them. And I could move them, well, I could add another set there. I can also press E to get the eraser, get rid of those. And then you can see here we've got this black tile. So what I would actually do probably is just click a few of these in, shift drag. Oh wait, just shift drag those ones, shift drag again, do that. Okay, fine. So now obviously if I want to put something behind these stairs, I'm going to need more than one layer. And luckily, of course, we just have this. It's a very sort of Photoshop styled layer control. So I will call this one foreground, and I will make another one and call that background, and I will place that below the foreground, obviously. Okay, come on you, and we'll do that to background. And then, you know, again, are going to be crying, but I'm just using something that has a lot of contrast so you can see, so I can place these behind. There's your different layer. Wow, what a glorious scene that is. Isn't it beautiful? And you can turn them all on and off as you're going, but we'll talk about that more in our project. So the last thing to do in here, as you may have noticed, is the material we're using. So it's not actually using our lit material at the moment. Now I have to, this is the thing where I always forget what I have named the material. It's not that, is it? It's every time I do this. It is, I will go look. I think I wrote it down here. It's funny, I was talking about this earlier today. It's always just the one thing I forget, even though not difficult. It's default sprite material. So easy. Why didn't I know that? Okay, default sprite material. And then we do that, and we save it, and that should be fine. So that is our tile set and our tile map. So we'll put those in the level in a little bit, a different level, because this is the first one again. But what we need to do now is, now I'm just checking I haven't missed anything. Nope, what we need to do now is make our flipbook. So we'll go back to our content, back to the folders we were using, and first of all, we need to import the texture that we're using for that. There's nothing exciting here. This is just another texture, same TGA, same style basically, and we'll just drag it in and import it. And just to show you, again, so again, if we leave it on the normal settings, it's all filtered and gross, and there's the wrong type of compression, and it looks awful. And rather than messing around with it, we can just right click, sprite actions, apply Paper2D settings. And there we go. Delicious pixel art, not made by me. So that's the first stage. The next thing we want to do here is obviously cut out the individual ones to use them as separate frames for this flipbook. Now you can do it manually, but the cool thing here is actually there's a tool for this again. So same menu, if we right click, sprite actions, extract sprites, you get this menu here. Let's see if my enhance button will work for this. Oop. Yes. Okay, so I can zoom in on these as well, can't I? So it has an auto mode, which I don't know, may do a good job in certain situations. You can see here, it's not completely wrong, but it is, because these should obviously all be the same size. So we'll change this from auto to grid. And now we've got it on grid. I know the size of these, so I can put in 64 by 64. And there we go, glorious. So we have all of those. There's a naming template, what it's going to name all the individual files. And for this, this will suffice. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't require anything more from it than this, so that is fine with me. So I will extract that, and what that will do is dump out each frame as an individual sprite. So now we've got these sprites, we should probably make another folder for sprites. Now, of course, you know, if this was a like full production project, you'd have a folder below this folder, but I'm just trying to keep it running smoothly. So there's just going to be a sprites folder. So we'll go to the, oh no, we need to go the other way around, don't we? We will go to where I just extracted those, and I'll click the first one and click the last one while holding shift, and then I can just drag them into there, and then I can move them here, and then always fix up those redirectors, because you never know. So, okay, we can go to our sprites. And now obviously we want to make this into a single animated flipbook. And again, Paper2D's got our back. So we can just select them, click the first one, hold down shift, click the last one, right click, and you can see there's only one sprite action now, and that is to create a flipbook. So I can do that, and I'm just going to leave it with the amazing name that it gives me normally, and you can see straight away what we get. So again, enhance, and I can bring this over here a little bit. So there you go, that gives us what we want there. And you can see if I bring this up ever so slightly, again, you know, this is a nice like fully featured thing. We've just got each of the frames in order, and you can scrub through them, etc., etc. But again, the source material is good, so you know, there's nothing that needs cleanup or messing around with here. Again, the only thing we need to do is change this to, let's see if I can remember, yay, that, and we can just save that, and that should be it. I like the way that I've set this up, so if I fail now, it's going to be extra dramatic. So if we go back to content, and we go here, and we open our other map, I'll just save that because accidentally it wasn't. It's just going to really upset the artist, but this is all just for the interest of speed. So it's completely black. There's nothing in here at all, and there are no light sources. So what we want to do is go to the tile map that we made, and we can just drag it in. There it is. What a glorious tile map, and it's still dark, obviously. And we can go to our sprites. Oh, I should move him into a flipbook folder, but we're nearly done here, so I'll just get on with it. And we'll drag him out there. Now, normally, obviously, you'd sort your depth out neatly and, you know, all the rest of it, but I'm not going to because this is just an example. But what I will do is press F11 to maximize the viewport because I don't need anything else. And this one I always forget, is it Alt? I want to say it's Alt-H. Yes, Alt-H to go to orthographic mode. And then I will change this to lit, and I'll press, I think that's what I want. And then, of course, I need to grab a light source, so I can just bring in a point light. And then what's probably happened is, because I'm an idiot and just pull them in all kinds of crazy ways, is it's just super far away. So it'll look weird from the perspective cam. Let's go back, Alt-H. Why does this look weird? Am I on the wrong side? Maybe I'm on the wrong side. Yes. So again, you would do this with much more care, I should stress, when you're doing a production thing, and you know, we certainly have. And I will show you that. But for now, the point is, if I get this guy, there you go. Now, obviously, this looks horrendous because I put it together this way. But the point is, even reaching this stage, I think a lot of people have had the misconception that this is very hard, or at least, you know, more than a couple of admittedly slightly obscure checkboxes. So what you've got here really is the foundation of what we're using, right? You know, I can drag this light around and it lights things up. And I know this particular setup is ugly as hell, but the point I'm trying to get across to you is this is basically what we have in our game. Now, if any of you have seen our game, maybe you don't believe me, which is my cue to start switching over to our game. So that will take a little bit longer. So while that's happening, what I can probably do is just tell you a little bit about that. So the thing is, as you're going to see, the materials and the textures and the lighting, all the same fundamentals. Our materials are really not that different. The only thing is, you know, obviously, the thing that's really built this up, and the thing that is really important to stress within these things, is that what really defines how good these things are is the quality of your source assets. Let me just open the map. So all the things we've shown here, you know, the tick boxes you can turn on, they're only going to enhance what you've provided in the first place. And there, even though I made something that looked horrendous, I was able to breeze through that tutorial because the assets that were delivered to me were the right size, you know, had all the correct art considerations, they knew how to make the materials work with them, so that's what made it easy. And, you know, I just want to stress that that's an important part of it. I feel like often when we're describing things like this and we are asked questions, I think sometimes people think there's, you know, a single magic bullet, whereas instead there are lots of normal bullets. What a terrible analogy. Let's never use that again. God. Our large map is quite large now, but I really do want to open this one because it just has, I think it's just a good showcase of all the different things we're doing in a way that I can pick at. Come on, you got this. Oh, why do we make this map so big? Nah, it's fine. We're nearly there. So I will just check my notes. I think everything is fine. Yes, okay. Come on, you. Did I mention this is a large map? It's a large map. Okay, we're here. So what I will do is I'll press F11 again to maximize the viewport, and it's just having a little think. It's done this before. There we go. This is a large map, and obviously streaming takes its toll. So just to give you an idea, like let's just zoom out and take a little look at this. This is our demo thing. And also, I should point out, look, I mean, it's Tilemaps. It's still flat. We're not cheating. It is not 3D in any way. And what we can do now is I can show you, basically, I can compare. Let me just check, get this in the right order. Yes. Okay. So what I can do is I can show you the things that are in here and, you know, how similar they are, really, just how they have been layered to give a much more impressive effect. The first thing to talk about, if we look at these light sources, they are point lights, just like I did. The main difference between what I did in my scene and what is here is I just dragged a pure white light into the scene with no horrible default settings that are not suitable for something like this. These all have, you know, nice complementary colors. They've all been considered. They're layered together. And speaking of layers, you can see that some of them, for example, like this, they're really primarily there, you know, to pick out highlights in the background rather than just illuminate the obvious stuff. And so what I can do about that is, yes, so I can see they highlight different layers. I think there's some of them are even probably slightly more subtle than that. Also, I'll try not to whip the camera around too much. I know that I have made people ill with that. But you see ones like this, for example, like, again, obviously I'm not too sure how well it shows up on the stream, but it's pretty subtle. Yes, okay. What was I going to do? I remember. Yes. So the main thing is it's highlighting different layers on the scene there. And if we minimize the viewport by pressing F11 again and go to edit map, we can take a look at this. That's a tile map. We'll come back to that. That's a distraction. We don't need you yet. So if we look at our actual tile map, it's the same principle as the other thing, as the one I just showed you. So we still have our foreground layer and we still have our background layer. And I will show you that obviously the main, you know, the main detail is coming up on the foreground, which makes sense. That's the layer that is the layer that the player primarily interacts with. They do also do things with the drop through layer, which is literally a surface they can pass through under certain, you know, conditions. And there's climbable, which obviously I hope is quite straightforward. There's not too much in this scene, but there's a few little pieces, like for example these railway pieces, I believe, are not foreground. They are climbable. Oh no, the other bits are. Anyway, they're kind of special case. The point is we still have the foreground, the background, and then the others are additional detail layers. It's easy just kind of, if I turn them on and off, you can kind of appreciate what they're doing. Again, Art may wish to say more in the chat, but I think they're fairly self-explanatory. And I think what's even more important about this is, again, you know, there's nothing technologically more sophisticated going on here than in the previous example I showed you. The difference is there are just more tiles and there are more layers, and you know there's been more, considerably more care put into its approach than the thing I just threw together. But yes, I believe that's that. Oh, and the other thing, I couldn't go in here without showing it. No one's impressed by this tile set. I know what you all came to see. You came to see this. No, you didn't. But I think this is worth showing very quickly. This is the little white box tile set that I like to use while just planning stuff out quickly. I only show this because this shows that really, like in terms of collision, we don't really have anything more complicated than this. I think we might have a couple of pieces, but we're not going crazy with the collision. But anyway, I guess you probably want to see this. So let's have a little look at this. In fact, what we can do is pop over. If I click this here, it will find it in the content browser. And then I can open in here in its other editor. So here we go. There's some interesting memory usage with this, so I probably won't hang around in it too long. This is a very large tile set. but you get the idea. Again, it's basically the same thing. The main differences are the tiles are different sizes. They're 16 by 16, and there are some margins on them. Again, please consult with art exactly why we have those margins. I don't want to misspeak on that. But I just wish to stress that, again, same stuff, just slightly different settings. But again, made in sympathy with the original source assets. Okay, I think that's good. And then we can probably check. Do I want to check the materials now? I do want to check the materials, but I can't help but notice we also have the normals here. Now, this is probably, of the stuff I've shown you, the most time-consuming, the most challenging, the least authentically 2D thing we do, because obviously there is a literal sense of depth, and I show you them only in passing just to be like, yes, okay, not everything is, is fake. There is, well, okay, it's still fake, but you know what I mean? Not everything is pure old school 2D. This is something that certainly is different, and we'll see that when we look at the materials, which I think I can get to now. I want to check I haven't missed anything. Nope, it is indeed material time. And because I always get these wrong, I am just going to search masked lit tile. Yes. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Now, the thing I actually want to mention is I will very briefly describe these things, but honestly, you see this? The specular and the roughness, that's the same. You see the base color, that's the same. You see if we use my little, where is it, this one? This is the same, default lit. Nothing, nothing here is different to what I have shown you in that other thing. Yes, but I will very briefly go over these so you can at least tell that, these aren't affecting the whole scene dramatically. So we have this thing here. Again, I'm not going to go into depth. If you're really interested, art will provide, but this effect just puts little glints on little surfaces, little sparkly bits on shiny metallic things. So in terms of the whole scene, it's adding a very small amount. This one we're not even currently using. We're experimenting with a fog of war system that we're not currently using, and you know what? I just realised it does what it says on the tin. It was desaturating and darkening the tile maps, but we're not even using it at the moment. And as we just looked at them, of course, yeah, we're adding the normals. But I hope you can see that it's not dramatically different to what I showed you in the example. The same is true of the one we use for the player characters and I believe NPCs. Let me just get this. I realize I could have just typed the end bit again, but oh well, I'm not very clever. So let's open that. And again, I will just go through the things that are here that are different, and so you're aware that they're for specific cases. So there's a panning channel here, which I believe, Art can yell at me if this is wrong, but I believe there's just some padding effects we have like waterfalls and stuff like that. I don't think it's a general purpose function. Pretty sure it isn't. The same glint effect again. So yeah, there's a little offset there, doesn't do too much. And we have in the game the concept of last known position, so we might show an outline of the player character. So you know where the AI think you are and things like that. You might have seen that. And we also use a similar effect for tutorial like Ghost to show you the path you should take. So we have an effect we apply there. Again, that's what it says on the tin. It's a little desaturation and a soft light blended layer over the sprite. And related to the Ghost as well, we have a little thing here that let me just check something. Sorry, I've just realized. Yes. Okay, right. I'm nearly into question time. But I will say, so related to the Ghost there, we have a sort of complementary effect here where we look at where the player actually is and we will mask out the Ghost if it's behind them. For example, if you're following a tutorial Ghost and you understand what you're meant to be doing, it's really annoying if the Ghost is moving with you, so we literally just mask it out. But anyway, again, the actual core thing, basically the same. So I hope that you can see, I hope that you're at least reasonably convinced that, like, when we show screenshots of our game and people ask what we've done, I suppose the fair way to describe it is the hard part isn't where people think it is, like this technical side. I admit there are some hurdles which hopefully we've just sped you through, but actually it really comes down to the the source assets and the application of those. So what I'm going to do is I am now just going to take a little peek over at the questions because oh Oh no, there is one more thing. There's one more thing I will mention that is another little thing in our toolkit. Admittedly, they're quite subtle at the moment, but I just want to point these out. You'll see there's these big volumes around a lot of the areas. And if I look at these are our, basically, what are we calling them? They're post-process volumes, that's it. And they're doing a couple of specific things as you enter and exit them to make it a bit more dramatic, but to be honest, that's not the important part. The only things that are really important for you to take away from it now are, I'll tell you what, I might use my enhance mode so you can get a better look at these. Central panel, there we go. This again is like using, you know, the extended Unreal Engine toolkit. You know, there's cooler stuff out there to use that once we go over the initial hurdle, we're in a good place. So we're using the tone mapper, again, beyond the scope of this, but look into it. And my favorite thing as well is we're using various lookup tables to color grade things. So we have, for example, there is a cold dawn, a cold interior, a cold night, a cold sunset, and my favorite, evil dawn. I don't know if evil dawn is used, but I like that it exists. So, I think I did it. So how are we doing on time? We're doing okay. I'm going to have a quick look over at the questions. So I think a lot of these, I'm getting the feeling that like we've gone into sort of serious art town, which is good, is to be expected. So I will flick through it. Let's have a look. Right, I see that some of these have been answered, but I think it's worth talking about. So someone asked, are these assets available to download? No. These, in all seriousness, these assets are the primary value of our project. We'd love to share some stuff, and maybe we can find something, you know, that's more middle ground, that's more representative of our game, but these literal assets are not something we're going to shift, because, as I said, that, as I hope I've demonstrated, within reason, you know, you can get quite far in an afternoon, but the actual value is those, so we cannot give those away. Okay, I am flicking through. Can you have more than one asset in the tile map? I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, I need a bit of clarification on that. Do you mean can you use more than one tile map on? Can you use more than one tile set on one tile map? No. Yes. No. I don't. Yeah. I think we split ours differently, so that wasn't really a concern. Okay, I'm flicking through. Have you used other sprite modes other than rectangles? Is there an impact on performance? Oh, I think that's what you're talking about now. I do not know. I'm sorry. Okay. I might have missed this, but are you using normals for lighting your sprites? Yes, and Keith has answered that. So we're using... Right. Okay, I forget. Yeah, Keith has been working on this a long time. So gradually, some of the things have normal, some don't. I showed you that big. Let's go back to that. It's more exciting than nothing. If we go back to, let's have a look at one of them. Anything will do. Let's go up here, go back to edit map, because I can't remember where they are. It's a lovely folder structure, but I don't know it. Lovely rainbow world. There you go. So some areas have it, some do not. I'm not sure how much of it is applied yet. I believe Keith has said, so I will defer to him. Every 2D game I did with UE4 was too heavy and lost megabytes. Is there a way to optimize it? To be honest, yeah, I'll just finish this way. To be honest, we haven't had tremendous performance issues. I mean, for example, when you look at this map, it looks large because it is dense, and obviously if let's hit G to make it a bit less. It looks large, but compared to a 3D game, this is tiny. Like, it's really small. And obviously by the nature of tile maps and all the rest of it, sort of texture and memory usage is reasonable. I'm not going to say, oh, we never had any issues with it, but I feel like compared to, you know, other solutions you might find, I don't think you'll find too much of a problem there. At least we haven't experienced any, you know, dramatic challenges there. Okay. How would you implement the floor that is being viewed from the diagonal instead of from a perspective? Like in games like in games such as Streets of Rage or even Super Street Fighter 2, there's parallax on the floor. Would you place the floor in 3D in UE4 and have the camera looking down in an angle, or would you fake it with the camera looking straight forward? Yes, that is stuff. I can't think if we have any like really strong examples, but we do not have, outside the normals, any like, you know, real 3D elements. So anything like that, I can't think of any really strong examples. But anything like that would be down to the artist's interpretation. You know, as in they would appreciate how the 3D shape would look and they would make it as a 2D object. So yeah, that is one of our hard lines in terms of purity with our project. You know, we will not put literally just sort of, you know, 3D polys in there. We try and use as much of the Unreal Toolkit as we can get away with, but we do have some sort of you know, rules. Okay, so let's see here. How do you deal with resolution? I'm sorry, I will have to defer to Art on this. They will know. I know we have had fun and games with pixel ratios. We have to be quite particular about it, and I will see. They will have to answer it specifically. I know you said there are certainly considerations, but once you kind of get that set up and you know what your ratios are, it basically behaves. When you start to get into a mess is if you don't clearly define that. Okay. How have you found UE4 to be performance-wise for 2D games? How's the overhead? Honestly, fine. I mean, this took a while to open, but obviously, you know, we've got a while to go. It's not fully optimized, and there's a lot of stuff in here that can be solved. In terms of playing it, even now, when we send out package builds, they run on pretty average hardware, and I think, you know, I think you'll agree. In fact, I might just, let me just check the old audio is muted. I remember how audio devices work. Honest, yes. In fact, I can probably, guess now I'm safe. So, you know, with it looking approximately like this, it runs on pretty average hardware. Obviously, in terms of our development machines, no, they're much more powerful, but we're running, you know, the engine editor behind it. So I don't think we have too much problems. There's also a good opportunity to point out, I don't know how well it shows on stream, but this grate I'm working over now, that has the glint effect on it. So if it's got that cool like effect, I like that. But again, it's quite subtle. You know, the majority of the scene is not made up by that, so nothing too special. I will just flick through and see if I have missed any questions. Actually, no, I can't leave myself in such a horribly dull location. Surely there must be somewhere more exciting. Go. Bust out the debug. Everyone loves debug. There you go. That's a bit nicer. Okay. I'll just check I haven't missed any questions. Okay, looks like they've mostly been answered. Looks like the rest of the team has been very efficient, so that is good. Okay, yes, that's fine. Right. Okay. Do you have any light sources coming off of the character? A torch, for example. I think we can. I mean, there's literally, I think it's intended. In fact, actually, it's like you knew, it's probably broken because everything's broken when you're not looking. This guy here has a torch. At the moment, it doesn't have the lit effect. Is he going to do the thing? Oh, he's not going to do the thing. How disappointing. But anyway, oh, of course, I'm still in zoom in mode. I do apologize. There we are. There's a guy with a torch here. At the moment, you can see he doesn't actually have the, you know, real lighting effect. I'm pretty sure we could just add that. I just think we haven't yet. It's not been pressing, and obviously you can see, you know, we've got a bunch of other. Of course, and our producer Aidan has pointed out there is a light source on the player. It's a small one, so small that I've kind of forgotten about it. But yeah, there is a little source on them. Let me just move up here in case those guys decide to come back. Right. How can I make a parallax scrolling effect with an orthogonal camera? God, I want to say that. I have some 3D characters and animations in the game, but still want background layers. Do not know specifically, but I believe that. Let's have a look. I mean, parallax is parallax, right? As in, the effect is quite straightforward. I should point out the reason we don't have it yet is basically because of that. We look at it and go, okay, well, we know how this effect works. You know, in very basic terms, it's like, well, okay, we have separate layers, and the layers further back move, you know, less quickly relative to those at the front, or the other way around. It's late. But, you know, that's quite straightforward to implement. All the other stuff we've been working on implementing, like, for example, this very work in progress visibility culling and more advanced lighting, we're looking at that first. So I think, to be honest, it would work the same as any parallax system. Sorry for keep asking, but is there a good way to profile a 2D game? I believe the normal tools work. I admit it's been a while since we've dug deep into that, but I'm pretty sure the standard Unreal profiling tools do the business. I mean, it's an Unreal Engine game. You know, the same tool should work, and you'll get the same information. Okay, looking. Okay, so he stated for the project, the tile size was 16 by 16. This leads me to wonder, what takes up the most space in these projects? Art? I'm pretty sure it's art. Probably art and audio, those kind of assets. But again, my team will happily correct me. So how do you handle AI without nav mesh volumes? No. They do have nav mesh volumes. We're getting a little off topic, but hey, I'll allow it because it is my baby. So there you go. They have nav mesh volumes. And actually, you remember the collision we made for the tiles? I always forget the shortcut. Is it just C? Actually, that might be a mistake. I think it would get unhappy with the amount that are here. But the tiles themselves, if I open this map, I don't need you. Let's go over here. Where is it? Yes. Now I saw someone ask about Box 2D and stuff like that. Oops, I actually needed this one. And we're not using that. We are using the 3D physics, which, you know, has its own quirks. But sorry, I'm just making sure this is extra visible. Can you see? No, it's right at the bottom. Well, I don't know. Thanks, computer. We are just using the 3D physics with quite a strong, quite a large collision thickness, so they stick out, which just allows the standard nav mesh to work. The nav mesh itself works pretty normally, is in pretty much like the 3D stuff pretty much behaves. In terms of the AI navigating it sensibly, way off topic. I would love to do that another time. I'd love to have another chat about that. But yeah, I could talk for another hour about it, so hey, let's not do that. Okay. Hi Chris, go team London is Unreal. Oh yes, do visit London is Unreal if you're near the London area. It's a great meet. I thought about using Unreal Engine for 2D stuff on mobile, but I'm worried that despite only 2D features like UMG, there's the 3D engine running on all cylinders. Do you find there's a ton of other processes which you could do without in your builds? Would it be better to use a more 2D engine for this? It's a tricky question. I think the thing is, it's a bigger question that it's like, if we were only ever going to make this game as we originally imagined it being, as like a really traditional 2D game, maybe, but still probably not. The situation we're in now, hopefully I've demonstrated that, you know, now we're starting to leverage the systems that only exist because it's a much more powerful 3D engine. We consider that trade-off to be worth it. I will profess I know nothing about mobile hardware in terms of what you can and can't get away with, so I don't know. But for us, this works well on the hardware we expect it to work, and we're able to add lots of kind of cool effects that I think a more pure 2D engine wouldn't be able to supply. Okay, and also I think I can see one of our audio dudes also. Oh no, he's going crazy on audio. But I was also going to mention that yes. There's been a lot of avenues have opened up there, really exciting things to do with audio that, again, if we'd gone for a more traditional engine, probably wouldn't have suited. Okay, another next question. Are you using a camera attached to the spring arm inside the character class, or is the camera in a separate class? Ooh, that's a topic and a half. I will... the debug may not be attached, but if it's attached, I will show you like a little Is it? Did we turn it off? We might have turned it off. That's sad. Another time. Short answer, we have a completely separate camera class. It's pretty smart. I get to say that because I did not make it. But it's completely separate to the player because it takes into account other things in the scene. So it's weighted towards points of interest that can either be manually placed or could be attached to enemies, for example. So it's kind of contextual. It's aware what the player is doing and it mostly follows them, but we can smoothly move it around. So I guess actually to directly answer your question, no, it's not directly attached to the player. It's not just a spring arm. It's its own class. Yes. Oh, yes, I see. Yes. So Echo Level is one of our awesome audio people, and yeah, he's already saying a bunch of words that make no sense to me. But if you like audio, I'm sure they're tasty. But no, audio is something that I'd love to share more about soon. But I would just say that yeah, the new tools that have come in the last couple of versions of Unreal Engine for audio have been really exciting for us. I'm just gonna check. I think I have covered everything. Let's just check. Oh no, there's something happening. I'll just move the game again because it's kind of pretty. Oh no, Allah has been summoned. Oh, it's a shame we removed the debug, or did we remove it? No, we did. What I can point out while that's coming in is that thing I mentioned with the ghost, where it just had the simple material mask around it. You can see it here. You can see it's not fully adjusted. It should be a bit bigger, really, but you can see that it just ensures that the character's always visible in front of it. So that's just one of the minor things. You know, again, it's not actually contributing a massive amount to the scene. And though actually this is a good, I tell you what, because I think we actually disabled some of the cool camera debug, which again, I'd love to do a stream just focused on that because it's kind of got there. But here is a good example. If you look at the relative position of the camera to the player now, so everything is fairly central. And if you keep an eye on the player now, when we go in here, you see the camera is just getting drawn higher and higher and higher. But it keeps the player in focus, well, not in focus, you know, on screen, but it's being pulled somewhere else. So yeah, it's not directly attached to them in any way. On you. Okay. I love this. Like, I think this may have been answered by your minions in chat. They are not my minions. I wish. How do you deal with the instances outside the camera? What do you mean? I will ask. Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but I can answer the next part. Where someone asks, have you tried using BSPs for level editing? I like BSP. I like it a lot. It's just, actually, you know what? I like BSP a lot, and I like the way it's fast for making 3D maps. But look, that's what these guys are for. Everyone but me hates them, but you can make something super fast, and it doesn't look as messy as the thing I made in the previous example because it's all, you know, a couple of colors, and your intent is clear. Actual BSP, it's overkill is a simple answer. It's not necessary to have that kind of geometry in the scene, but I do love it. Okay, I am looking here. Would Paper2D be suitable for a 2D isometric game, say in the vein of a classic XCOM, or would it be smarter to do it in a 3D environment with character sprites billboarded to the screen? Oh, I don't know. My gut feeling feels like the latter. We're not the best people to ask for that, purely because if there's ever an easy way to do something or a hard way to do something, we always end up doing it the hard way because we can't help ourselves. But I think it would depend very much on the style of your game, I'll be honest. Like, I hope, again, you've seen through this that like a lot of the stuff in this game is really down to starting from the art and the direction that goes, and then finding the effects that complement it. So I can certainly see both ways will work technically. It just depends what you want the overall style of the game to do. And our producer Aidan has confirmed that Tilemaps support isometric. I wasn't sure because obviously we haven't used it. So yeah, you can do it either way. I think it's really more of a stylistic choice rather than a hard barrier to stuff like that. Okay, I think why didn't I do this? Okay. I think that might be everything, and we're pretty much on time, but I will hang for a little bit just in case anything shoots in. In fact, you know what? Oh, let's go back to the... Why don't I just put the character at the start of the level? We just don't know. Because what I will do is I can just play through a little bit and see if anyone has any questions about specific bits. And if nothing comes up, that's fine too. So someone's asking, I can see this direct from the chat. Is the character using a custom collision or just a default capsule collision? Well, let's have a look. I think the capsule's definitely in there, but you know what? In fact, there you go. They have a capsule component. And I think it's pretty stock. Let's, dare I do this? Might be a risky move. Let's have a look. I love the way that they're laughing at me every time I go in here, by the way. It's great. So I should stress that some stuff work in progress. I don't know what that does, but we're not using it for the camera. I know that for sure. Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's a pretty standard capsule. Our physics are pretty normal. They're 3D. They're just obviously constrained 3D rather than actual 2D. So yeah, there's nothing too special going on there. Nothing crazy. Let's get back here. I can see someone asking, do we have an ETA for when the game is released? We do not. Please follow us. Please look at our website, siegeandsandfox.com, Twitter, all those things. I hate to be that guy, but that's the reality. We're not sure yet. We're making good progress, though, I think. So someone asking, in a 3D environment, use level streaming and render things inside your view. How do you approach this in a 2D environment? So we have experimented a little bit with the level streaming. The honest answer is, at the moment, we just haven't needed it. If you remember that I said that, sorry, I didn't do this before, that actually compared to a 3D game, the map is technically really small. Like, you know, the scale of all these objects compared to any 3D game is small. So as it stands, we haven't needed to really lean into it. I think we'll have to use it a little bit to sort of mask initial load and things like that. You know, as in loading from the main menu, but I don't think we're too concerned with having to do lots of, you know, streaming volumes and holding people in place to load the next section, because compared to, you know, traditional massive AAA 3D game, it's actually quite resource light. Okay. So yeah, I'll give it a couple more minutes so everything rolls through. If not, I think we can start to wrap up. Awesome Allah asks, is your camera system inspired by Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet at all? It is massively inspired by Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. Why do they have to name it that? Yes, that was a big point of reference. Oops, didn't even realize there's nearly saying point of interest. Yes, we're able to turn on debug. I think we've sort of switched our current debug. You'd see that it's very similar. It's a bunch of overlapping circles, and you know, they're weighted and they can all meet up with each other. You can see there's a very strong one here as well that's dragging the camera up and back towards that. But yes, anyone who's interested in game cameras, which I hope that it would be some of you here, find the video of the team at Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet describing their camera system, because it's great. I think for 2D games, it's one of the best I have seen of that style. Okay, we did it. We answered all the questions, or most of the questions. Okay, I think we're about good. Yeah, I think that's about right. Let me just check everything is in order. Excuse me, I'm not used to having quite so many screens. Okay, yes, I think we're good. So thank you very much for coming along to this stream. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to do it. I'm so happy that Epic let us show what we're doing with their engine. I hope it's been really useful, and I should point out, obviously, that I know we haven't gone mega in depth. We just want to get the ball rolling, see if people are interested, and demonstrate that you can actually get closer to what we've got than you might think pretty quickly. I will try and go through the forum threads and answer any of the questions that we haven't, and hopefully the guys are still chatting away there and answering some of the more in-depth questions, which I'll be honest, I either don't know or couldn't answer succinctly. Beyond that, just a little bit of the usual admin. Please, if you are interested in our game, please do check out our website. We're of course on all the usual channels. Please do check us out. I try very hard to respond to everything that comes through. Yes, we're good. So thank you very much, guys. Yeah, hopefully see you again soon. Goodbye.